If we could see them, the tops of most New York City buildings are made up of chimneys and air ducts and window washing equipment. But there is a move to transform our roofs into expansive urban gardens and farms that can refresh our air, cool buildings in the summer, and keep them warm in the winter. Encourage butterflies and bees, store storm waters, and someday supply fresh vegetables to our inner city and beyond. This has been the dream of Brooklyn City Council member Rafael Espinal. And we will be talking to him about his new bill recently passed, along with the support of City Council members Donovan Richards of Queens and Stephen Levin of Brooklyn, that requires green roofs on certain New York City buildings.
And we're also going to be talking with Inger Yancey, who is the founder of Brooklyn Green Roof. She is a green roof professional with extensive experience in creating sustainable architecture. I'm going to have to ask about that a little later. Ms. Yancey lectures on environmental subjects, including urban agriculture, green infrastructure, green roofs, and stormwater management. And she teaches in the environmental sustainability. I knew I was good. I knew.
We practiced that last night.
I was so close.
Sustainability.
I was so close.
I know you were going like a train. Yeah, sustainability.
Sustainability. I know I said it live. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. She teaches in the environmental. Now you can't. Like now I just can't speak anymore. She teaches in the environmental
sustainability.
I can do it.
Okay, go.
She teaches in the Environmental Sustainability Program at Pratt Institute.
And with us today is Dustin Partridge, the director of the Green Roof. One more time.
It's contagious.
And with us today is Dustin Partridge, the director of the Green Roof Researchers Alliance, founded by the New York City Audubon to expand urban nature via green roofs in our city in an effort to improve sustainability, resilience, biodiversity, and social equity for all New Yorkers. And we're going to have to define each one of those.
Yes, I know. We got to come back to this.
Before we leave here.
And this is Bar Crawl Radio. I am Rebecca McCain, and my partner, Alan Winson, are recording at Gephardt's Beer Culture Bar on West 72nd Street, half a block from Broadway. And we are going green. So, welcome everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you all have...
Nice to be here.
Raphael, you're getting your margarita. Oh, they do have margaritas here.
Margaritas.
All right.
I'm going to have to try one of those one of
You know,
these days.
Raphael, we were and we did a margarita
We
crawl.
were there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's closed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Gabriella's is closed.
Yeah,
Wow.
I miss it. I mean, it's like, where do I get a
Wow.
good So you have to tell
Because they
tell
made
us-
good margaritas.
Is it any good?
I don't know.
Yeah, let us
Is it
know. Let us know.
Let's take a sip.
Let's see.
This
Let's
is
see.
important.
We'll each sip, okay? Is it all right?
It's good.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
My cider's good.
There you go.
And
Really good.
Dustin, what are you having?
So I'm drinking a beer from Kings County Brewers Collective, and I'm doing that because they support New York City Audubon.
Very
They
good.
have a
Nice.
really
Right.
good beer called Project Safe Flight, which helps all the hundreds of thousands of birds that pass through the city.
Very
Wow.
nice.
Oh, I would have had that had I known.
Yeah.
All right.
KCBC?
KCBC.
Yes.
And I've got a Spaceways beer.
Oh,
I think
it's
I just said something Spaceways.
Wait, it was more to it.
Yeah. Whatever
Oh,
it doesn't.
sugar.
And Inger, what do you have? Oh, you're doing a cider.
I've got a cider.
Beautiful.
Is it a hard cider?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well.
We're in a bar.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
What's-
I know that.
Why have it without and Becky, you're having your.
I'm
Tito?
having Tito's martini.
Excellent.
Yes,
Excellent.
I am.
Well done.
I had a rough
okay.
day. What
Okay,
can
so
I
everyone's
say?
good. And if we could reach over on the wires, I'd say let's toast green roofs.
We can.
Okay,
We've done it before.
toasting
Come
green
on.
roofs. Here we
Toasting
go.
green roofs.
Let's toast
I'll drink to
that.
that.
Yeah, you
Right.
bet.
There we go.
Good seeing you all.
Good. And good seeing
Nice to see
you
you
too. Right. Rafael Espinal, City Council member of District 37 of Brooklyn. It is great to have you back on BCR. The last time you and I were together was at WNYC Green Space.
Yes.
And you, sir, were running for city advocate.
Right.
Becky and I, we voted for you.
Thank you. I appreciate
We
that.
did.
I'm so
I
honored.
voted for you.
I'm so honored.
Unfortunately,
Thank you.
those two votes did not quite put you over the top.
Right.
Right. If I could have voted again, but we
But you
couldn't.
had-
Got me closer.
Right.
You were close.
But you're still doing good work at the City Council, and you announced your run for Brooklyn Borough President in 2021. Wow. And we'll get to that. I do want to hear a little bit more about that. But first, let's talk about your newest initiative to establish green roofs in New York City. And congratulations on that. You're doing
Thank you.
such good work. Why focus your political capital on green roofs?
Well, honestly, there was one morning I woke up and I read a New York Times article, I believe. I could be wrong on where I read it, but that France was looking at mandating green roofs.
Right.
And I thought to myself, well, I know green roofs do exist in Brooklyn and in the city. Maybe this is something that we could tap into here and emulate what the conversation, bring it to New York City and have that same requirement. Also, as a young person, I've become increasingly concerned about the environment, especially with the election of Donald Trump. We know
Yeah, look what he's doing.
Right. He's doing a lot to roll back a lot of the progress that's been made
Yes.
in the space in the conversation. And I thought it was time for local cities to play a more aggressive role in the conversation, be able to pass aggressive policy.
Had you known about green roofs before? Because I know you've done other kinds of green stuff. You did the thing with the straws.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know where that is these
Yeah,
days.
we might pass that very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've done work around sustainability. I would say my personal interest is tied to food and learning about farming practices and the importance of eating local and organic and knowing that some of these green roofs were being used as farms as well. So it kind of all tied up to my personal passions, understanding what was happening in Washington, to my vision of hoping that we can create a city that's fighting aggressively against climate change.
Right. And that's why we want to talk specifically about the green roofs initiatives, because it sounds it's exciting, it's sexy in a way. I mean, the whole idea is just like wow.
I think we can all visualize it, which
Yeah.
is
Oh, yeah.
what's
Yeah,
exciting.
but how easy is it to do it? Yeah. Now
I've never done one. I've only been on them.
We're going to find out from the
gonna-
experts
yeah,
here.
we'll ask.
I think it's sexy because it's the new frontier. 'Cause
Right.
people have always thought of their rooftops as this thing that I don't want to go on. It's too hot. It's gross, dirty. But you can make it into a little oasis up there.
Right. Very
So-
nice. Yeah.
On your roof, like that's then your backyard. That's
Exactly.
Yeah, you
Because
go
so
up
many of
there.
us don't
Yeah.
have a backyard.
You step out on the green roof and you're stepping into wildlife habitat.
Nice.
So you can walk out, and if you go out at the right time during migration, like this time of year, you could see a lot of different migratory birds, migratory
Oh,
bats.
that's
insects. It's really-
we have that question coming up. But let me ask you now: what are the goals of Green Roof Researchers Alliance?
And Dustin
This
Partridge.
is Dustin. Yeah.
Who's the director there.
So the initial goals of this were we had a bunch of different researchers in the city, and we're all doing work on green roofs, and we didn't necessarily all work together. We didn't know what other research was going on. We got together in the same room and realized, wow, there's a lot going on in New York. New York can really be a leader in the green roof science industry. And we've started working together. So we're really collaborating to expand science, to extend advocacy, grow new policy, and help educators throughout the city.
So what is a green roof, and how is it different than some woman or man putting potted plants out on their balcony?
Yeah, so a green roof, and Inger can
Good question.
jump on this.
Yeah.
So a green roof is a roof that's been kind of covered with a waterproof membrane in the simplest measure, planted with growing medium, and then planted with vegetation. So there are a bunch of different types of green roofs, which Inger can mention.
And we will get
Yeah.
to that for sure. So is New York City keeping pace with the other cities? I mean, are we behind? Are we ahead?
Before these bills, no. So we were really behind until this legislation has come through, which is really good. So we, compared to other cities, we were really we're lacking in the number of green roofs. We just recently found out how many green roofs there actually are in New York, and as of 2016, there are 736 green roofs.
that
so-
sounds
Right.
cool.
How many buildings? Out of a million.
Out of a million.
Yeah, so there's a long way to go.
Okay.
So we're at Gephardt's, and I was just talking to a very tall man who's at the bar, and he was talking about green roofs in Detroit.
Right.
That Detroit seems to be more advanced than we are.
Yeah, the Ford
when it
factory.
comes, right.
Can I add something about
Yeah,
Sure.
Raphael's
Yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, so New York City has been working for quite a while trying to increase the sustainability of their buildings, but they haven't really been thinking that well about green roofs. And so when Raphael, stepped up to the plate and said, look, we really need to get some legislation that requires green roofs, that kind of completes the picture in my mind. A lot of other cities had already gotten that far, had already had more incentives and more programs that were encouraging them. But now we
That's
join the
great.
group.
Yeah,
That's
and
great. Well,
and
Raphael, you're always very forward-thinking.
Yeah, and I would say that I knew it would be one of those issues that New Yorkers can easily get behind and be interested in.
Who
right?
would be against it?
Right, exactly. I mean, I
Well,
think
that's
that,
a good question.
And as was mentioned, the city works on a policy on making buildings greener and lowering carbon emissions, but they're usually talking about the boilers, the windows, nothing really that's sexy or
No.
exciting
Right.
Exactly.
to anyone. So when you talk about green roofs, New Yorkers are like, wow, we would love
Yeah.
to have a green roof on our own roofs. So-
Okay.
A
so-
green roof,
Yeah.
it actually increases the property value because people love them so much.
That's great.
And then it's measurable.
That's super. I was talking to Scott in the cab on the way over here, and he's all for it. He supports
Great.
you. He's all for it.
Right.
Raphael, you're learning about green roofs now. I mean, you have this bill that's out there, and we'll talk about the bill and what it does. But when you think of green roofs, what do you see?
I will tell you what I saw and what I hope in the future to see.
Exactly.
I mean, so in Brooklyn, there's a great organization called Brooklyn Grange, and they have about an acre of rooftop space in the Brooklyn Navy Yard that's dedicated solely to being a farm and an event space. And they put this farm forward with the idea of growing local vegetables and being able to sell them to local shops. They realize that it's not that profitable. You need more land to grow more vegetables to make more money. So they've also turned it into a space where people can rent to have their weddings. Photographers go to do photo shoots, and they've really turned this into as a community space. Communities
And they
are able to go.
bring school kids
Right.
through too.
Right.
And I
Community
bet
space.
before these farms or gardens were planted, nobody would wanted to have a wedding at the Navy Yard.
No, not on the rooftop. of the
Not
Navy
on
Yard.
that roof. No way.
Exactly.
How tall is the building? Is it several stories high? Or?
It's on the 12th.
This is Bar Crawl Radio, and I'm Alan Winson, and we'll be back with our conversation with Raphael Espinal, City Council member from Brooklyn, Inger Yancey, founder of Brooklyn Green Roof, and Dustin Partridge, Green Roof Research Alliance, part of the Audubon Society. I am now on the 11th floor of Building 3 in the Navy Yards. Alina Larson, our co-producer, is just approaching me, and we're going to go and visit with Anastasia Cole-Palakias, who's the co-founder and chief operating officer of the Brooklyn Grange Rooftop Farm. She's going to tell us about the farm, and we're going to get a look at it. Hey, Alina.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Hi guys, sorry to keep you waiting.
Oh, Anastasia, hi.
It's been a day. Nice to meet you.
Alina, hi.
You found us okay?
Yeah.
I'll go around the building once.
Yeah, so did I mention in my email, did I already say that we're going to be dragging you back to our Sunset Park farm? We've completed construction of our third farm and greenhouse and are currently working on building a building on top of that building.
And right now we're going up the stairs to the roof, through the emergency roof access. And it's raining, and we're out on the roof of the Brooklyn Grange. And we can see Manhattan across the way there. This is pretty gosh darn amazing.
Well, welcome.
Thank you so much for inviting us up here to the Brooklyn Grange.
Oh my gosh, thank you for coming. Thank you for making the trip from uptown. We have a pretty panoramic view of New York City from this particular roof here in the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
What are we looking at right now?
Yeah, so you're looking at the second location of our business, which is spread across 3 rooftops in Brooklyn and Queens. This particular site was built in 2012. It's a 65,000 square foot farm on top of Building 3 in the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Can we translate that to acres?
Yeah, it's about an acre and a half. Our total acreage across all of our fields is 5.6 acres. And those 3 fields generate almost 90,000 pounds of food every year.
I've always thought of a roof, farm roof, as like a flat roof, but you also have like an angled thing going on here.
Those are covered skylights, and we love them because they provide a little bit of a windbreak. We don't have trees up here, so wind can be, especially up on a roof near the water, wind can always be a challenge. We've planted that skylight with meadow crops, natives, perennials, pollinator attracting crops. In peak season, if you're up here in, say, September, particularly October is when the monarch butterfly migration happens.
Nice.
You would see butterflies, all different types of bees and flies and birds flitting about from plant to plant and behaving as though this human ecosystem all around them didn't even exist, which is one of my favorite attributes.
So the butterflies don't know they're up on top of the Navy Yard roof.
In
12
fact,
flights up.
In fact, they might. Butterflies, it's a really interesting fact. Butterflies sense temperature difference from really long distances. So more than, say, a park at ground level, because the other rooftops around us are so hot. I mean, we are on average 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler, our surface temperatures on this roof, as opposed to a regular, black tar roof. So butterflies sense this temperature difference from really long distances, and they flock to us we're like a bullseye to them.
Oh, we got to come back.
You have to come back
in
the
this
season.
summer.
It's pretty fabulous.
So when is the height of the butterfly season?
October is monarch migration season, and this year it was really exciting because the last, this was our 10th season farming rooftops, and I don't think we'd had a migration season this prolific since 2010. We also have a great migratory predatory bird population that comes through. We have a delightful family of kestrels. They are the smallest birds of prey. You might recognize them from their clee, clee, clee sound that they make. But they absolutely love the insect populations that sort of tend to explode at the end of our season here. So you'll see them sitting on top of parapet walls, cleeing away and just dropping down and pulling tomato hornworms out of the tomatoes, or crickets out of our meadow here on the patio and tearing them apart. And we love it because they're just a wonderful natural form of pest control.
Right, but I mean, do they get into the vegetables?
They don't.
So you don't have any that kind of problem. You have no deer,
We have no deer. I mean, that's one of the greatest benefits of being up on a roof is you don't have deer, you don't have squirrels. Ground level farming, urban farming, of course, one of the biggest challenges is rats. We don't have them.
Because they don't get up here.
They don't get up here. They haven't figured out how to work the elevator buttons yet.
You've been here in the Navy Yard for 10 years?
This was this farm opened in 2012. It was, at the time when we received the grant in 2011, the largest recipient of the New York City Department of Environmental Protection's Green Infrastructure Stormwater Management Grant. That program, long name, but is a really important program for folks to know about, particularly as we enter this new era of the Climate Mobilization Act. This is a really important piece of law that went into effect last month, October 2019, and was the product of the hard work of the Environmental Committee of City Council and a whole lot of us activists making noise about how we need to change the way real estate is being developed in this city.
Well, this program is part of a program which Rafael Espinal was on.
Oh, right, of course. So I'm sure he told you all about it.
He did in his new bill that requires now rooftop gardens and
requires. So when we first approached
Love
him,
that word, requires.
we sat him down and said, "Would you be willing to talk to us about maybe putting some incentives out there for developers to include green roofs on their project?" And wouldn't you know, he said, "Yeah, we could incentivize them, but what if we just required these green roofs?" And we were, frankly not sure if he could make it happen. But it was really...
He wasn't sure either, he said. And he was surprised that there wasn't really much pushback.
And I think that speaks to the fact that New Yorkers for so long have wanted to see this city live up to how the rest of the world sees us. I mean, we get a ton of international visitors, and I'll tell you, they all say the same thing, which is New York City is really a leader in green infrastructure, but moreover, urban farming. And the fact of the matter is we actually have quite a bit of catching up to do.
Anastasia Cole-Plakius, thank you so much for inviting us up to your farm.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much for coming.
One more.
Glee.
There was much more to our conversation with Anastasia Cole-Plakius, and you can hear it at BCR Extra, see episode number 71. And now back to our conversation at Gebhard's Beer Culture Bar, which was on the ground at 72nd Street.
On the roof.
Now, Dustin, you had mentioned to our co-producer, Alina Larson, that this is not the general use of green roofs in New York City, that it's a very minor part
Right.
of green roofs. Why is that, and can we move in that direction more?
So the majority of green roofs in the city are not farms. Farms are, they're not for everybody. Not everybody wants to be a farmer or run a farm. They're a great space. The majority of green roofs are actually just kind of garden space, or almost if you think of like kind of a lawn. They're just spaces that are out there that are capturing stormwater, reducing energy, and providing wildlife habitat. And they're really beneficial, just like farms are. So the majority of those are around. I mean, there are a couple of really great examples, like the Javits Center has a 7-acre green roof that is entirely sedum. It's kind of the opposite of Brooklyn Grange because it's 1.25 inches of growing medium, so it's really shallow. But it's
And it covers the entire top of the Javits Center.
everything but the glass structures.
Almost. They're going to add more, and
Yeah,
then
it's
it will.
growing. Yeah, so it's 7 acres, and it's expanding now, and there's going to be even more green roof up there.
Very
That
nice.
blew my mind when you talked about it pre-show.
Yeah.
That there's this green roof on the top because you can't see it when
Right.
I ride my
Yeah.
bike by. I don't
go right
see
past it. I have
Yeah,
no clue.
and it's right there.
Go on Google Maps.
Oh, yeah.
Satellite view it.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
All right.
So
So people can walk around up there.
Yeah, you can schedule
they
a tour.
have tours.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
okay.
schedule a tour and get up there throughout the growing season, and it's really quite beautiful. There's a herring gull colony up there. There are 29 species of bird that are passing through.
There's like 5
species
species of bats,
Yeah.
right?
Oh wow.
So it
Yeah.
is a pretty impressive space, even though it is kind of just sedum. It's really shallow, but it really provides a lot of benefits.
All right.
Wow.
If I might,
Yeah,
would
yeah,
you
go
like me to
ahead.
describe what sedum
Oh,
is?
yes, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the workhorse of the average greenhouse, green roof, is sedum. Sedum is a very small plant. It never gets more than about 4 inches high, except for sometimes the flower stalks shoot up a little higher than that. It's a tiny leafed succulent, and it will grow in really poor soils with very little moisture, and it never needs to be reseeded. It never needs to be mowed, so it's really not like a lawn at all, except that it's low growing.
But what if it gets a lot
So-
of rain though?
It can handle a lot
It
of
can
rain
handle it,
because
okay.
the medium that you plant it into is this engineered medium that is calibrated to hold the right amount of moisture for the plants.
It could be the headphones.
Yeah, so sedum is really the most common plant out there, and then another type of plant that we always try to plant is a native perennial, because native perennials are what all of the local and migratory birds are looking for when they're foraging, and so
Nice.
that's kind of the most typical. And the other thing to understand is that a farm requires deep soil, and it weighs a lot. And not every roof is going to be able to hold that.
Okay.
So, like the Javits Center could hold like 15 pounds per square foot. A real farm roof needs to be able to hold at least 50, 60 pounds
Okay.
per square foot.
So is
I
that the
see.
limitation on the farm roof? Is that particular thing that not all our structures
Yeah.
in the city can sustain
accommodate a
that,
farm.
can hold that?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always upgrade the structure. It is possible to do that, but most building owners don't really want to go that far, and there's
Right.
no reason that they should. If you can support a lighter weight green roof,
Right.
then you can do
So
that.
Dustin, is that why there's not that many farm things, or is it just
Yeah, a
not
large
part
part
of
of
the
it
imagination?
is the
or-
structural capacity for these roofs. And I think a lot of people just prefer to have kind of a boutique garden on the roof or a roof planted with sedum. So, it's just kind of a matter of preference as well as structural
But there's so many
capacity.
things that farms on roofs could help in our
Oh yeah,
city.
absolutely. And there are some great examples of just kind of typical green roofs that have a section planted with the farm. Like they have a little farming garden, kind of their own private
Okay.
garden, and it's quite beautiful, and they get a lot of produce from it.
I wonder if we could do just a real quick kind of tutorial on how a green roof is created.
Okay.
Let's say we say the one that I think is sexy is putting up a farm on a green roof. So how would you do that? I mean, once you check for the structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we talked to Ingrid because you're the architect.
Right. She
Yeah.
graduated from Harvard University and design and got a master's in architecture. So
Right.
Yeah, I think you could.
I
talk about
also,
this.
though, in order to do this work, became a contractor. So I'm a licensed, bonded, insured contractor too.
Oh.
Cool.
Do you have a lot of work? I mean, is there a lot of
I
work
do.
to do this? You do.
I'm super
You're busy.
busy.
Great.
Oh,
Okay.
and especially now with Raphael's new bill. By the way, it takes effect tomorrow.
Whoa!
Oh my gosh.
I have to celebrate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're starting early,
Yes,
right?
yes,
This is the
yes.
beginning of it for me.
All right.
And we do want to talk about that bill,
Oh my
like what it
gosh.
covers.
I've been having so many crazy meetings all week long because everybody's anticipating that bill taking effect. So
Right.
it's really
Wow.
cool. But to
Okay.
get back
Super.
to the pragmatics of
Yeah.
like how do you do a green roof?
Right.
So the first thing you want to have is you want to make sure that your roof is waterproof. Dustin mentioned that. You need to have a new waterproof layer.
Okay.
You know, so a great
What is
time
that,
to
like
put
plastic or-
no, but a great time
More
to
than
put
that.
on a green roof is when you re-roof. And every roof, you know, the average life of a rooftop surface in New York City is about 20 years. So every 20 years or so, you know, a building is going to need to re-roof. That's the perfect time to put the green roof on.
Okay.
The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you do know how much structural capacity your roof has, extra capacity.
How do you find that out?
Well, I have a few structural engineers that I work with, and as soon as, you know, I usually have to kind of train them and teach them like what exactly I'm looking for.
Right.
But a structural engineer can tell you. They measure how big the roof members are and how far apart they are and what material they're made out of, and from
Okay.
that they can tell how much weight the roof can support.
Okay.
And whether it's that
That makes
succulent
sense.
or it can actually support carrots.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain amount of capacity left over for when it snows and the snow sits there for a long
Right.
time. So we're talking about extra capacity beyond all of the requirements for the roof. And then
Like
then
water-
that's
and
going
the-
to tell you I can have a 6-inch deep green roof or a 2-inch deep green roof. And based on that, you're going to decide what kind of a garden I want to have up there.
from the
Right.
catalog that you're going to be making of green roofs.
Yeah, there's actually so many different types that I'm working with a couple of other people right now to try to standardize it so that it's
Oh, so there isn't
easier
really
to
a
roll
standard.
out.
I mean,
There are-
it's so new.
No, it's not that. It's just that it's quite variable. Like if any garden, any
Oh.
landscape, there are so many different things that you can do. So then, once you've got that beginning information, you begin with your material layers. The most common thing to do is to put a root barrier over the entire available roof surface, and then you add a moisture retention layer, and on top of that, a filter fabric. And each of these layers is covering all of the available roof surface. On top of the filter fabric, you put your engineered growth media that we've already been talking about,
Right.
and then the plants, and you have it.
And you're off to go.
There you
And,
go.
the, and the roof barrier disallows the roots from getting into the structure of the building.
Yes,
Okay.
the root barrier goes on top of that waterproof layer, and it just makes sure that no matter what, because you really do beyond those layers that I just described, you design all of the edges so that you're going to contain all of that material and the roots of the plants.
Right.
But you need to make sure that if any little root got through, that it still can't get through to the roof.
I mean, life will have its way, and roots will have their way.
Well, not if you're very careful
careful,
and
right.
you know what you're doing. You absolutely need to hire someone who knows what they're doing.
Right.
It's not a do-it-yourself project.
So if you know what you're
No
doing,
DIY roofing, I guess. Roof
Not a
farming.
good idea.
Not-
I mean,
okay.
do you ever worry about
So,
that?
Alan,
that
I
someone
told
is
you.
gonna,
I don't know.
gonna start putting
I was
up.
ready to go DIY.
I love DIY.
I mean, for one thing, the dirt that you would get to put up there, whether it's from your backyard or from Home Depot, is going to weigh way too much.
Oh,
All right, but
didn't
I mean,
carry
it just occurred to me. Now you have this bill out there, and you have some money that's available for people to. And I said, "Oh, I own a brownstone. I've got this flat roof. I'm going to build a garden up there. I'll put trees and
I can do it. I can do it myself.
I mean, I guess you have to be careful about what people are doing.
And correct me if I'm wrong. If you're gonna do more than 3 inches, then you have to file to the Department of Buildings. Not to
4
encourage
inches,
anyone.
actually.
Not to encourage anyone.
4 inches.
Okay.
Which
all
will
right.
Above 4 inches,
Yeah.
and you need to file. But also, if you want to apply for some of the financing that's available, there are incentives available, and in order to get those incentives, you also need to file, no matter how deep
Yeah.
the green roof is.
Right.
Okay, so if you're thinking about putting a green roof on
By-
top of your brownstone, there are rules about it.
There are
Yeah.
regulations. Okay.
So by
Good
filing,
to
we're
know.
talking about getting a building permit from the Department
Sure,
of Buildings.
sure.
Right, there you go.
So there, that guy who's got his own shovel and he's
You're
not
just
going to
kind
be
of like
able to
throwing up the
DIY
dirt
it.
and
No.
No, please don't do that.
You mentioned that a good time to do it is when you're, working on your roof. You're retro. You're fixing your roof. What's the lifespan of a green roof versus a conventional roof? If you,
All right, so good question. Once a green roof goes on the roof, and that's assuming that you are actually covering all of the available roof space, your roof surface, your waterproof roofing below at the very base, that is going to last 2, 3, even 4 times longer than it would have. So you're increasing the lifespan of your roof. Instead of 20 years, it's going to be more like 40, 60, 80 years.
wow.
That's cool.
Oh, there's all kinds of
Yeah,
payoffs.
and
to it.
A lot
that
of
saves you a
incentives.
lot of money and hassle. It saves you not having leaks. It's,
All right.
Right.
really, there are tons of other benefits, but I'm glad that you asked about
Well,
that.
that we
one.
want to talk
Okay,
about
we
all
wanted
that.
to one of those best. Dustin, in your bio, you refer to green roofs as supplying social equity for New Yorkers. What does that mean?
so think about the lack of green space in New York City. In certain areas, you have to walk pretty far to find
Right.
access to green space.
Right.
If we start introducing green roofs in these areas, I mean, that's access to a private or a public access green space that is a safe area for people to hang out, enjoy the outdoors, and it's right nearby.
You
See,
know?
I was
Say-
wondering about that, though. I was wondering also, too, what about those green grocer deserts, too? Is that, I mean, if they
Food
if they
deserts.
can
Yeah.
do, if
Yeah.
they can do farms on certain roofs, wouldn't that also, be
Absolutely.
beneficial to that
And
neighborhood?
it's
yeah.
a really good fresh source of vegetables. So instead of having to have it transported so long, who knows where it's coming from North Carolina? By the time it gets here, it's going to be a little bit
Chile.
wilted. Yeah, Chile. Yeah. Instead of that, you have it right in your neighborhood. You get it fresh off the roof, and that's a really different experience.
But and there are neighborhoods in our city, and Raphael, you would know more about those particular areas, which they don't get much green, fresh green vegetables. I wondered if that was part of the inspiration when you went up to the Grange and saw those vegetables.
Yeah, of course. I also saw it as an opportunity to create more community gardens and green spaces that communities that lack access to fresh fruits and vegetables are able to capitalize on.
Right.
So, for example, here in Manhattan, I can name 2 community gardens that in the past year have been slated to be bulldozed and built on.
Here in Manhattan.
Here in Manhattan. There's
Wow.
one in
Not Upper West Side.
No, there's one in Harlem called the Mandela Garden, and there's one in the
wow.
Lower East Side
It's a sin.
called the Elizabeth Street Garden. And
How
these
long
are,
have they been there?
10 years, I would
Yeah.
say, on average.
There was one in Brooklyn that
Yep.
just got developed over the last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And these are spaces that were providing, social benefits to people who live there, people who put a lot of sweat equity into maintaining it. And now they're being they're slated to be bulldozed, but
building, for
for
large-
buildings, yeah.
So what if
So-
what if a building like that, a developer comes in like that and says, you're going to lose this garden in your neighborhood? Well, then the city says, well, then you must build a green roof.
Well, with the bill now, if the building meets the requirements, then they're going to be required to have a green roof.
They're going to be required.
But
A new building.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is
Very-
good in
yeah.
the sustainability sense. But when you talk about the community losing access to the space, and
Yeah,
that's,
we have a
the issue.
beautiful garden on the West Side Community Garden.
Yes.
I don't know if
yeah.
you've seen it, but they've got the tulips around tulip time. Do you know the West Side?
I do.
Yeah,
That's
and they
a
have
nice one.
concerts
It
there,
is,
and
yeah.
I record the concerts.
I don't
and
think they're
it's-
going to be bulldozed.
I don't
I
think
hope
that's
they
going to be
can't.
They have a
bulldozed.
strong
You guys
board
would rise up.
Yeah.
You would sit in front of the
But
bulldozer.
Harlem,
Yeah.
so it's happening in Harlem.
Now,
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
else
but
to add
so-
actually about social equity is that it's not just about access, right? So even if you're on the ground level, if you don't have access to that roof, you're still getting the benefits of the cooling. So I mean, we've all been here on a hot summer day, and it's just brutal, right? You kind of want to get out and get somewhere where it's cooler. Green roofs do that. So if you're living in a neighborhood and you don't have access to green space, you're still getting a little bit of a cooler. It's like an air conditioner for the neighborhood.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have a great statistic on that.
All right.
And also I wanted to add something to the social equity part. But the statistic is that at Javits Center, which you were just talking about, they measured everything before they put on the green roof, and then they measured everything after the green roof. And on the sidewalk across the street from the Javits Center, it is actually 2 degrees cooler
Wow.
now than it used to be.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Just from the green roof that's across the street, that's way up high in the air, you wouldn't think that it would have that effect.
It's cooling the air around the
It
space.
is. So
Right.
the other thing that's I just want people to be able to envision how the social equity could work like for them. If you live in an apartment building, that's kind of one of those 6 stories, kind of quarter of a block or bigger, kind of big apartment building. You have room to develop that space up there to have a deck space. You can add solar and have green roof, and it can be big enough that you're actually letting the kids who live in the building, plant carrots and that kind of thing.
That's
did
nice.
I see, Inger, on your description of what you do, that there's also wind turbines that are being considered as part of that process?
I don't know if that's still on my website. Back in
Okay.
the day, I used to
Okay.
have that as a goal, but it doesn't really work to have a wind turbine attached to a building
Okay.
because there's so much vibration
blow away.
involved. No, wind turbines actually vibrate a lot, and you don't want that on our old New York City
Okay, well,
buildings because then the mortar starts falling out.
Live it-
you know.
Okay,
live-
okay.
live and learn.
But
Right.
another place that green roofs have had a great social equity effect is up on top of like a senior housing development, because green roofs are very beneficial in terms of health.
Right.
If someone can even just see plants outside of their window, it really helps them, feel better, have a better day, and be healthier. But if you can take those people outside and let them work in the garden, deadhead the flowers or plant new seeds in
Yeah.
the spring,
Lovely.
it really enhances their life. And there are places like Via Verde, for example, up in the Bronx that have done this in New York City already. And it's just, I think, an area that's really waiting to grow.
Yeah.
Raphael, can we talk a little bit about the bill that just passed?
Sure.
What does it cover? I think it's a tax abatement that it is involved?
No, it's a
not.
requirement.
Okay, talk about it.
So it's a
The tax
requirement.
abatement was already
Yeah,
established.
it's a mandate. So any new building any new building will have to install either a green roof or solar.
Wait, it's not just new buildings.
And then when there is intensive roof repair on an older building, then they'll have to put in either solar or a green roof.
And this is required.
Required
And
by
al-
law.
Yeah,
That's
and
great.
Also,
No choice.
so at this point, I know this rule
Yes.
backwards and
I'm
forwards.
sure. No,
You can also
let her speak on the bill. Yeah,
Business,
I
yeah.
haven't read the text in 6 months.
No, but it's also if you add roof space to your building.
Yeah.
So if you go up, then you have new roof space up above, or if you extend out, like into the backyard or something, then you're required to put a new green roof on. And it doesn't matter how big or how small your roof is, it has to either green roof or solar or both, but it needs to cover 100% of the available roof
And the
surface.
cost to doing these changes in your roof, there are benefits to having the roof garden, to keeping energy costs down, for example.
Yeah, lots and lots of benefits. I think Dustin had a list that he wanted to go through on benefits, if we're ready for that.
Yeah. So, well, we talked about a few of them. So the energy savings, like we talked before about the cooling off the city, the urban heat island, that also cools off the building. So in the summer, the building's not pumping the AC. So it reduces the energy bill there. In the winter, it's actually an added layer of insulation. So that's better for energy bills as well. So you're saving costs there.
And is that true for someone? So we live in a 23-story building, and
Yeah.
if they were to put a green roof up there, we're on the 7th floor. Does it really help us?
It won't be as pronounced as if it was a factory somewhere, like a 2-story factory, but it still
It'll
is a
help
benefit.
the top floors, though,
Yeah.
more than the floors down where you are.
Right.
And there's some work
And-
now on the HVAC units that are on the roof. A lot of times they're sucking in air that is right off the surface of the roof. And colleagues
Which is
at
hot.
Drexel,
Yeah.
colleagues at Drexel are examining this right now in the Javits Center.
Oh.
They're looking to see how that cooled air right above the roof is actually being sucked in and reducing that cooling.
Okay.
Yeah. So with all of those kinds of benefits, you can expect your AC bills to go down for that top floor area to go down as much as 50%. And overall throughout including what happens in winter, your energy bills typically go down like 20 to 30% just from the green roof.
All right, but I mean, the kinds of buildings we're talking about are factories, maybe brownstones. But what about these super tall buildings that we have? I mean, our daughter is in construction, and she took us up to a building downtown. And there's all kinds of like equipment on there and washing, window washing stuff. You're not talking about those kinds of roofs.
Those probably make more sense in most cases to have solar.
Right. And
So they're all covered. Every single building's covered.
So a 70-story building that's being put up, and they're being put up in the city, will have to have one of those elements.
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
have to.
That is great. Congratulations.
Yeah, look what you've done.
Thank you.
That must
Yay, Raphael!
that must feel great.
Yeah, no, and I have to say we have one of the most aggressive laws here because, when I wrote the bill, I did aim to require 100% of the rooftop to be covered, but never I thought that was going to be the requirement. I thought they'll negotiate to 50%. There's some developer or
Don't shh.
Yeah.
it's too late. It's law now.
Done.
But like in Toronto, for example, I believe it's 25%.
Yeah. But
You know,
here
so
it's
they're
total.
100%.
But because it says green roof or solar or both,
Yeah.
if you cover, you put as much solar as you really need, but it doesn't cover the entire roof, people are still going to add green roof in addition to that.
And yeah, so this is a big deal. So if you look in Germany, there have been a couple of cities that have these rules in place. So
Oh,
if
yeah.
you go to like Google Maps and you go check out Stuttgart, I think it is,
Stuttgart is
and
amazing.
you fly over, it looks like you're flying over a park. So there's just green space everywhere. And it's really, that's probably the future of New York thanks to this bill.
That'd be great.
I know, Raphael, you're interested in movies, and a lot of times you get this shot from a helicopter
Right.
as it flies over the building, kind of
see it in
interim
the
between
future.
shots,
Yeah.
and now we'll see green.
It won't be the concrete jungle anymore.
Right, it won't
Yeah.
be the concrete jungle.
Yeah.
Well, it will be a jungle.
Yes,
it
there
won't
will be a
concrete.
jungle. That's
It'll be
right.
a literal. It'll be
That's
a
right.
literal jungle. I wonder if we talk about.
I want to interject. I'm
Go,
sorry.
please.
I know. We've agreed on the next question, and then I'm interjecting.
Yeah.
So what?
Throw my script
what about
away.
the walls? Aren't there? I mean, in
There's-
Paris, they're like
Yeah.
growing on the walls too. Is
Well,
that
we have a
the
building-
We
future?
have those here too.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have
Green
ivy
walls.
on our building on 91st Street.
I know.
in,
That
West
must
End.
insulate the whole building then.
Well, a green wall on the outside of the building really helps keep the building from heating up too much. But in general, green walls don't have nearly as much environmental benefits the way that we're talking about them here with green roofs.
Okay.
They do, if they're inside of a building, they really help clean the air. They actually
Wow.
make the air a lot
Oh,
healthier.
we should have a green wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That'd be interesting. I've seen restaurants with them.
They're
with green,
gorgeous.
They're-
with green
they
walls,
require
right?
a lot of maintenance.
Okay. Okay. All
No,
right,
but
then.
that's okay.
Yeah, how do you
I mean,
water
so
it?
you
We'd have to get a gardener.
How do you
out.
water?
Yeah.
You gotta throw water up on the wall.
I don't know.
You
Mexico
irrigate them.
City, I believe, is putting green walls under their infrastructure, and the highways
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
And they're capturing all the
Oh.
brake dust and pollution to help
From the
clean.
highways.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the highways, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and also the stormwater there.
Yep.
They've had a huge influence. One of the things that's great about green walls is that if you plant the green wall with vines in an area where it's really marshy, there's way too much moisture in the
Like
ground.
New Orleans or something.
Yeah, or maybe just an area like underneath I don't know,
highway
an
or
elevated highway or something.
Okay.
The vines suck the water up like at an incredible capacity. You wouldn't
Okay.
believe it.
And then help them to grow and expand.
It helps them to grow and expand. They look beautiful. They cut down on the sound that's produced by that elevated highway as well.
Let's move. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, there's
Go on,
one other
Justin.
major benefit that we haven't touched on yet, but it is stormwater capture.
Yeah.
So we haven't really talked about that. But I mean, if you look at the Javits Center, for example, Frank Montalto at Drexel has found that about 50% or more than 50% of the rain that hits it in the summer is captured. So that's a big deal for New York City, where it's about to get a little bit gross, but our stormwater combines with our sewage if it rains too much.
Oh.
And then that flushes out into the local waterways. So by capturing stormwater on a green roof before it combines with our sewage, we're actually making a huge difference to the Hudson, the East River, the local ocean.
Oh.
This is amazing. It's. I mean,
Yeah.
It sounds. There's nothing bad about
I
this.
mean, is there anything bad?
No.
Is there anybody?
No.
Is there anyone against it?
No, and there are also great ways to help pay for it.
Yeah, there's someone in the line of work who likes to say it's a Swiss Army knife. You know, it's a Swiss Army knife, and how many different things it does. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
So this is a Swiss Army
Stephen Peck,
knife
I think,
solution.
says that. Stephen
yes,
Peck
yeah,
of Green
Stephen.
Roofs for
Yeah,
Healthy
Stephen Peck,
Cities.
yeah.
Let's give a shout out to
Yeah,
Stephen Peck.
that's right.
If it weren't for him,
Yeah.
where would we be?
Right.
Bees, butterflies, bats.
Yep.
Beautiful bluebirds.
Pollinators.
Yeah, pollinators. To talk about that, what does it do for that?
So it's a little bit surprising, but green roofs really provide a great wildlife habitat in New York. So we have something like 46 or 48 species that we've observed using a bird that was observed using green roofs in New York City. A lot of them are during migration, so right now we're kind of at the tail end of more migration, but during the spring, there are millions of birds that pass through New York, and they need to stop and refuel. So they basically need to make a pit stop during the day, eat a bunch of food, and they continue their flight north. If there aren't green roofs here, they're just kind of landing, and they don't have anywhere to go, and a lot of them are starving, corroding with windows, they're not doing well. Green roofs provide that stopover habitat. So during spring migration, there are a bunch of different migratory birds that are landing on the roof, foraging on all the insects that are up there. You kind of build these habitats. There's a beautiful pollinator diversity that shows up, insects that arrive.
How do
an
the
insect.
insects fly in?
So some
No
of them fly in,
worms?
but then what about like things like collembolans, which are really important too. So they're these tiny little things that break down leaf material, and they're really helpful for the soil.
The
Those things-
decomposers.
Yeah, exactly. So they come in. Some of them come in probably with the original plantings. Others show up.
Nematodes and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, so things are finding their way up there, and not everything that ends up on a green roof can survive on a green roof. But those that do get up there and they can do well in that habitat, they really flourish.
Do mushrooms grow?
Oh yeah, and mushrooms are actually really important as well for
Right,
the
because
mycorrhizal
they
connections.
How did you
kind
think of that? That's-
Well, because of what I've learned about mushrooms and how they're kind of this communication system, this whole underground
Yeah.
system between the plants and
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some really fun work that's come out of Colombia that's looked at how mushrooms end up on roofs, the interaction between plants, green roof plants, and the mushrooms that are growing there. So they're pretty important for helping the green roof function.
Okay, so how big could this get? And we're talking about New York
Okay.
City. If we were to kind of
Wait a
spread-
minute. I've got this one.
Okay.
I've got this one.
Okay, how big?
There's 1 billion square feet of rooftop surface in New York City.
Wow.
All
All the
5
bor-
boroughs.
all the- all the
1
boroughs.
billion square feet. That's equivalent to 22 Central Parks.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Of
So-
roof space
Of roof space.
that are capable of having greenery on it.
I mean, most of them seem to be. In my practice,
Yeah.
I have actually, in 12 years I've been doing this, only had one green roof that we found that couldn't support the weight. So, yeah, most of them can.
And again, how many Central Parks are we talking about?
22
22.
Central Parks all throughout.
Right now we have one.
Yeah.
You see what you started here?
God, we have to start building bridges.
Amazing.
I actually founded my company because I woke up a couple of days before Earth Day in, 2008 actually, and I woke up with this vision of looking at the New York City rooftop space covered in green.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I have to do that. I'm an architect, so I can deal with structure, I can deal with waterproofing, I know all
Right.
those details, and I love plants.
So cool.
Yeah.
What a combination. How many of you are
now
in the
it
city
might,
that-
thanks to Raphael,
No,
it might
thank
actually
you.
happen.
Wow.
Thank you. I'm just a messenger. I saw a great idea and I wanted to make it into law. And
That's
the
great.
great idea came out of the great work these two have been doing for a long time. So
And there's more, and of course you're with the New York City Audubon Society, and so they're very interested in this too. And I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to mention that because you've been talking about the birds.
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of different research on birds, insects, and bats because we really are looking at these as wildlife habitat. And when we say wildlife, we mean, I guess, things that can access green roofs, not necessarily all the wildlife that could be in New York City. But we have 5 species of bat that are in New York, and they are using green roofs as well. During migration, they're flying over. There are amazing pollinators that are up there. There are beautiful spiders that can show up, which, sorry if anybody doesn't like that. Sometimes people don't like spiders,
As
but
long as
they're
they're
fascinating.
in the farm.
As long as they're on the
and
roof.
The
And
roots, yeah.
it's all a bit of a community. I mean, it's all community interactions. Certain predators are eating other things. They're providing food for others. It's really quite fascinating. A lot of times when we get questions about pests on green roofs, we haven't seen many up there because it's not really a habitat that pests want, right? Like they're more drawn to human access. We're providing a green space that there's no food up there for them really. They're not looking for, they're not finding garbage on the roof necessarily. We're finding habitat that they can live.
Becky wanted to
makes
guess
sense.
which of the 5 boroughs is doing the best as far as green roofs are concerned. Yeah, I mean, before you
I
tell
want
us,
to
is
take
there
a
an
guess.
answer to
I
that?
want to take a guess.
Go ahead.
Is there an answer?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Brooklyn.
Brooklyn is really big.
Yeah.
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 Parts of Brooklyn have a lot of green roofs.
Yeah, but otherwise
It's
it's
huge.
Manhattan. It's basically
Really?
Midtown and downtown. Our colleagues at the Nature Conservancy just recently created a map which, if you're living nearby and you want to see where your green roofs are, you can go to greenroofsnyc.com and click Explore. And there's a map there that they created. And you can fly over.
greenroofsnyc.org. greenroofs.com.
Yes,
.com.
Plural.
You
Green
your
roofs,
group
plural.
created that?
Yes,
Yeah.
so that's the from the Green Roof Researchers Alliance. It's for everybody to use, and it's a great access to see where the green roofs are in your neighborhood. And it's going to be really cool as that map gets updated, thanks to this, to see
I
where
still
they're
have
growing.
to update it.
The Brooklyn Grange, and they all just opened up a new rooftop in Sunset Park,
Yeah.
and they have it open to the public every Sunday.
It's really big.
So we
It's up
would-
on top of the Army Navy building.
I'm not
What's it
sure
called?
which
It's
building
the
it
Army.
is, but it's in Industry City.
Yeah, it used to
Sunset
be
Park,
this
yeah.
Army hospital.
Oh, okay.
It's giant.
And then, so that would be on that website.
So
you
not
talked
yet
about.
because it's so new. So
Okay.
the way that we did this is we use satellite imagery, and my colleagues in Nature Conservancy did this work, and they basically the satellite imagery comes out every 2 years. So they're working with data from 2016. It's going to be updated for 2018, and we're going to see the growth then. And then in 2020, I'm assuming that there's going to be a whole lot of new growth. So it's going to be pretty fascinating
Cool.
to see where these are.
Very cool. So getting back to this idea of what the downsides may be. I mean, I can just see New Yorkers complaining about everything. Like, are they putting fertilizer up there? Is that fertilizer flying down on us? And, I mean, is there anything?
No.
Nothing.
No
I mean, what
downside.
about wind? I mean, it gets windy
So
up on
here's
top
the
of
thing.
buildings.
Here's the one thing. You absolutely do need to have some minimal maintenance on any green roof, because if you don't and your plants die and it gets windy and you don't have plants to hold the
Right.
soil down, that is not good.
Yeah, imagine if they're not pruning the trees, if the
Yeah.
branches are getting,
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and it's
Not
incredibly important to have bird-friendly glass as well. So we're creating wildlife habitat, and a lot of times it's really nice to have a big bay window looking over this wildlife habitat, but birds don't perceive glass and they crash into it. And it kills a lot of birds.
Yeah.
So there are certain things that you could do. You could retrofit the glass, get new bird-friendly glass, or you can just kind of put this sticker on that'll prevent collisions, and it makes a big difference.
The good news is that I have a bill for that.
You do.
We're going to require buildings to have bird-friendly glass.
Yay!
And we're hoping to pass that bill before the end of the year.
thought
And
of
it.
something
Nice.
I learned taking a tour with the Autobahn that Jacob Jarvis
You
sent
know,
to.
I was
Wow.
just thinking
By
you
the bill.
should be the Brooklyn Borough president.
Yeah,
Well,
really.
before we-
Wait, do you go by Rafa?
You could call me Rafa. My sister called me Rafa.
Rafa. Rafa.
I think you have your.
I had one other negative thing I was going to say, and that is, we are in this environmental crisis and chaos for a lot of reasons. And green roofs are not the solution. It is one of these solutions. Why not, I guess I'm talking to Raphael, why not put more kind of city government efforts into gardens on the ground? We do have space in the ground, Brooklyn and the Bronx, and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
space.
Absolutely.
And it would be less expensive, it
Yeah,
seems.
definitely. I mean, they exist. The spaces exist.
Right.
Well, so bioswales,
Right.
right? Bioswales are where you take a street tree pit and you make it so that it is capable of holding a lot of stormwater,
Right.
as well as growing native plants and things like that.
Right.
So
Sweet.
that's something that the Department of Environmental Protection has been rolling out over the last 5-6 years, and there are a lot of them that have been installed now. So there's also a program called the Green Streets Program, where they're trying, you've noticed probably that at certain street corners they're adding little gardens and things.
Yeah, I
So
see.
yeah,
I see
they
much
are
more
really
flowers.
trying to add more at-grade green space.
Right. I mean, I'm concerned because we were just talking before about these areas in the city that are being taken over by developers, and they're taking the gardens and they're destroying them for the high rises.
Right.
And if we kind of look at this really neat idea of roofs and green roofs, that we may forget this other part, that there are community gardens that need to be looked at. Of course, that's not your issue, but it is Raphael's.
Right. I mean, again.
There's a lot of support at the
Yeah.
city level for community gardens
Yeah,
still.
we need more education. Need more of my colleagues to make this a priority for them, right?
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
we need a mayor. There's an election in 2 years for a new
Yeah.
mayor. We need a mayor who's going to put this on top of their to-dos.
Yeah.
So there's opportunity here to change the leadership and have more growing voices talking about this stuff.
Ingrid, there was one point you wanted to make. I saw you wanted to say something.
I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about job creation.
Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So, although maybe that's more
No, go ahead.
your
No.
topic, but-
That's
Well, so who installs all these green roofs? I mean, I'm sort of the mastermind, but I always need to hire people to help me. I can't do it all by myself. I mean, I have a small staff in my office, but you need to hire trained labor. And there is this amazing program. There's a couple of them, but the one that I work with was, I think, really the first in the city, started by an organization called Sustainable South Bronx. And now it's also run in conjunction with the HOPE program, where they take people who've been down on their luck, formerly incarcerated, homeless, whatever, and they train them and test them and train them and give them all kinds of tools to re-enter the workforce. And they train them specifically in installing green infrastructure projects like green roofs, but also like community gardens and bioswales and other things like that.
Amazing.
So it gives this whole bunch of people who really need work that they love. And I love hiring these people because they show up, they're on time, they love plants, they already know how to do what I need them to do. And
Great.
so, it's I think another great thing about Green Roofs is we're going to be able to increase that whole program.
Yeah, there'll be a
Amazing.
lot more new jobs. People can go to school for this field now and really take
I'm going
it.
to change the topic here a bit. Raphael, you filed in August and announced in September
Yes.
that you are running for Brooklyn Borough President in 2021. And you've started to raise $250,000 towards
I'm
that
trying.
effort.
That's my goal.
Okay,
That's
okay.
my goal. If I'm able to raise that, then I don't have to worry about fundraising anymore, and I can focus on campaigning and hitting the streets.
So why do you want to be the borough president?
I did run for public advocate a few months ago, and the reason I ran for public advocate is because I wanted to have a bigger role and a bigger voice in government and be able to influence a lot of the policies coming out of City Hall and have a bigger bully pulpit to do that. I've always wanted to be a borough president, and I ran for public advocate because that was the first opportunity that opened up, and I thought it was a great opportunity to do that work that I wanted to do. But since I lost, I'm going to go back to my original plan A, and run for borough president, represent Brooklyn, the borough I was born and raised in, a borough that I think has been leading on a lot of issues, progressive issues across the country. And it'll be an honor, to be a kid from Brooklyn, to become the borough president and do the work of the borough and the city.
I followed you one night as you moved from one event to the
that was
other.
fun.
I had a ball, and you took us out and we had some beer before
Yeah.
you went over to the green space.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything from that run that
Yeah.
you're going to use for this one?
Definitely, I think I used that run. I think I used all of the tactics politically and all of the strategy that I was hoping to use in my borough president race. I was able to see what worked, what didn't work. Where I should focus more of my attention on, what parts of the city or the borough I should focus more of my attention on.
Right.
So it's kind of, it was a test run. It was a real run. I was running to win, but it allowed me to test all of my strategies, and I saw what worked and what didn't work.
Right.
In hindsight, it was,
Right.
you were
Yeah.
able to, yeah.
Definitely.
We had a great time, and our talk on the subway I thought was
Yeah, that was fun. I was actually
it was
thinking
neat.
about that on the way here.
Yeah, as you were moving from one place to the other, and it's on Bar Pro Radio. A young Politico trying to raise his stakes here.
Isn't this amazing? This is a concrete jungle. And we're returning, to agriculture, to land, to
Yeah.
green.
New York City agriculture. It's like
Yeah.
it's such a weird combination
Weird
of ideas,
idea, yeah.
but
Yeah.
you're making it real.
It needs to
Congratulations
be.
all.
Putting it back
I mean,
into
it
the
needs
bottle.
to be.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you, Inger Yancey, a green roof professional, also an educator and a lecturer. We want to thank you, Dustin Partridge, a green roof scientist, researcher, and educator, and City Council Member Raphael Espinal for joining us for the Bar Crawl Radio conversation about green roofs.
About green roofs, and boy, I wasn't really that excited when I sat down. I don't know why. I mean, it's like,
You're
but now-
inspiring us.
You're like,
but now I'm
just
sitting here,
green
it's like,
roofs.
I'm like, yeah. Go.
Gardens,
Right.
nature.
Well, thank you so much for thinking of doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, and we will want to report back later what went on. We love to meet and talk with interesting people in our neighborhood bars. If you like our programming, tell others. Like us on social media. Email us with your suggestions for future conversations at barcrawradio@gmail.com. And thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.